Tulsi Gabbard asked for a fact check. Ask, and you shall receive. Hi, thanks for watching. Today is Friday, Fact Check Friday. And I've got a great one for you today. It comes from the last Democratic debate. Now, if you watched it, you probably didn't because the ratings were the lowest they've all been. It's been very, very boring. But if you did, you noticed that Tulsi Gabbard did ask the fact checkers to check her. And this was exciting because I was like, yeah, I want a fact checker. That's great. And so today, I'm going to look at the claim that she made during the debate, whether that is true or false. I'm also going to fact check Pete on his response and whether that was true or false. And also, I'm going to look at how the other fact checkers have deliberated and what they've said about this incident as well. And as a special bonus, if you stay till the very end, I am going to give you my analysis as the world's greatest fact checker on the exact height of Pete Buttigieg. All right, let's get to the video.
But I want to get back to Pete Buttigieg and his comment about experience. Pete, you'll agree that the service that we both have provided to our country as veterans by itself does not qualify us to serve as commander-in-chief. I think the most recent example of your inexperience in national security and foreign policy came from your recent careless statement about how you as president would be willing to send our troops to Mexico to fight the cartels. As commander-in-chief, leader of our armed forces, I bring extensive experience serving for 7 years in Congress, on the Foreign Affairs Committee, on the Armed Services Committee, on the Homeland Security Committee, meeting with leaders of countries around the world, working with military commanders of different commands, dealing with high-level national security briefings, understanding what's necessary, the preparation that I've gotten to walk in on day one to serve as Commander-in-Chief.
Congresswoman, thank you.
Okay, so that is the initial claim, and we're going to look at that claim. We'll look at how the other fact checkers have checked this as well, and then I will get to Pete's response to this. But the claim is that he would be willing to send our troops to Mexico to fight cartels. That's the claim. And when you're doing fact checking, that's what should be done. You specify what the claim is, and then you rate it as whether it's true or false or needs some more information or however you want to do that. But that's the claim, that he would send American troops into Mexico to fight cartels. So let's look at what factcheck.org did for this. They had a lot of fact checks from the debates, and in this one here, they didn't rate it. All they did was they explained that Tulsi Gabbard made this claim. They reviewed the remarks that he made in question, which was on November 17th at a forum in LA, but they certainly don't give a rating as to whether the claim is true or not. That's not fact-checking. You actually need to put yourself on the line and say whether this is true or not. Now, when we go over to PolitiFact, they did a little bit better job because they actually made a determination, although it was not the right determination. But they do have the claim that he'd be willing to send troops to Mexico to fight cartels, and they say that Gabbard's attack contained an element of truth but was exaggerated and misleading. Well, when you read the relevant quote, and I'll play what he says about that, but it's a long, convoluted answer. So if you summarize it, if you simplify something, is that exaggerating? Well, it could be simplifying it. I think it would be fair to say that Tulsi simplified his answer. That would be a fair critique of it. But when you have limited time, you can't, it's this long, convoluted quotation. You can't quote the entire thing. She simplified it. She said that he would send troops into Mexico, and that's true. He did say that.
Mayor, after a number of Americans were murdered in northern Mexico, President Trump suggested sending U.S. troops to help Mexico deal with the cartels. With your military experience, is there a way to deal with the cartels that doesn't violate Mexico's sovereignty? But Mayor, specifically, do you see a time when troops could go into Mexico if Mexico welcomed it, for instance?
There is a scenario where we could have security cooperation as we do with countries around the world.
Now, in this case, I believe that PolitiFact is inaccurate when they say that it was exaggerated and misleading. Technically, you could say that anything is misleading. It's that whole actually meme, that actually they said this and give the entire quote. Well, unless you quote someone word for word, verbatim, you could call that misleading. It's not misleading. He did say this, and we'll get into his response here.
I know that it's par for the course in Washington to take remarks out of context, but that is outlandish even by the standards of today's politics.
Are you saying that you didn't say that?
I was talking about U.S.-Mexico cooperation. We've been doing security cooperation with Mexico for years, with law enforcement cooperation and a military relationship that could continue to be developed with training relationships, for example. Do you seriously think anybody on this stage is proposing invading Mexico?
That's not what I said.
I'm talking about building up alliances.
Okay, I just got to pause it here. What Pete is doing here is ridiculous, okay? She made the claim that he would send troops into Mexico, and his response is, hey, I was talking about security by having troops go into Mexico. Yeah, that's still sending troops to Mexico. And for him to say, who on this stage wants to invade Mexico? That's insane. It's ridiculous, and it is really telling how defensive he is. If he can't handle this, how is he going to handle a debate with Trump, right? This is really bad.
And if your question is about experience, let's also talk about judgment. One of the foreign leaders you mentioned meeting was Bashar al-Assad. I have, in my experience, such as it is, whether you think it counts or not, since it wasn't accumulated in Washington, enough judgment that I would not have sat down with a murderous dictator like that.
This is really funny. And just a reminder, okay, that when Obama was running against Hillary, this is what he said.
In 1982, Anwar Sadat traveled to Israel, a trip that resulted in a peace agreement that has lasted ever since. In the spirit of that type of bold leadership, would you be willing to meet separately, without precondition, during the first year of your administration in Washington or anywhere else, with the leaders of Iran, Syria, Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea, in order to bridge the gap that divides our countries?
I should also point out that Stephen is in the crowd tonight. Senator Obama?
I would. And the reason is this, that the notion that somehow not talking to countries is punishment to them, which has been the guiding diplomatic principle of this administration, is ridiculous. Now, Ronald Reagan and Democratic presidents like JFK constantly spoke to Soviet Union at a time when Ronald Reagan called them an evil empire.
And in response, Hillary said the opposite.
Senator Clinton?
Well, I will not promise to meet with the leaders of these countries during my first year. I will promise a very vigorous diplomatic effort.
So to be clear, all of these smears by the media that have been done before by Kamala Harris and whatnot, and with this one, with Pete Buttigieg, this is just echoing the talking points of Hillary Clinton.
You were asked directly whether you would send our troops to Mexico to fight cartels, and your answer was yes. The fact checkers can check this out. No. But your point about judgment is absolutely correct. Our commander-in-chief does need to have good judgment. And what you've just pointed out is that you would lack the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to ensure the peace and national security of our nation. I take the example of those leaders who have come before us, leaders like JFK, who met with Khrushchev, like Roosevelt, who met with Stalin,
like Donald Trump,
Reagan, who met like Reagan, who met and worked with Gorbachev. These issues of national security are incredibly important. I will meet with and do what is necessary to make sure that no more of our brothers and sisters in uniform are needlessly sent into harm's way fighting regime change wars that undermine our national security. I'll bring real leadership and experience to the White House.
Okay, there you have it. I think that Tulsi Gabbard did a nice job in explaining those points. Now, to be clear, Obama talked about going and talking to Kim as well.
But you know what? I was watching all the cable news last night, and to all these liberals who are reflexively hating on this, Obama, remember him? Proposed the exact same thing in 2008, and they loved it.
And it's true. Nobody on the left had a problem when Obama said this exact same thing. Now, I just want to encourage you to share this video. Why it's important to share the video, here is a little picture from the analytics of a video I did earlier this week. After a few hours, 100% of the views of my video came from my subscribers. That meant that there was not a single view from outside of my subscribers. Well, if I don't get the videos shown to new people, this channel is going to die. And that's why I need your help. Please share the video with someone else. And for the rest of the video, I'm going to be really petty and talk about Pete's height. And if that doesn't interest you, just click the like button, and I'll see you next time. Now, why do I care about his height? I don't. It's just going to be fun to call him a tiny, tiny man. But I started to try to find out what his height was. And it's not listed on any of these sites. And people think that he's about 5'8". And based on photographic evidence, I would say that yes, when he appears in public with some special shoes, he does appear to be 5'8". When I go and look at the debate and we zoom in, we can see that two of the candidates are standing on risers, and that's Tulsi Gabbard and Amy Klobuchar. Both are standing on a 2-inch riser in the debate. Pete Buttigieg is not on a riser. He's standing, on the floor. But somehow he appears to be even taller than Amy Klobuchar. Well, how is that possible? Well, I did find photos of him without socks on and standing next to his husband, and they're about the same height. Now, his husband is listed at 5'6". But every time the couple appears in public and he's wearing these special shoes, he does appear a little bit taller than his husband. Now, I believe this is intentional, that he appears taller than his husband, although I believe they are the same height. Well, how? How is it possible that he can appear to be taller than he really is? Well, think about this. Our phones get better every year. Our TVs get better every year. Our cars get better every year. Elevator shoes and lifts that you insert into your shoes, they get better every year as well. And in fact, the technology today is really incredible what they have to make you appear taller. And I believe that Pete Buttigieg is wearing some really tall lifts in his shoes so that he can appear taller than he really is. Now, on the debate stage, he did not appear as tall as Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi's 5'8", but she was on a 2-inch riser and she was wearing some pretty big heels. Well, how could he appear almost as tall as that? He's got some very special shoes with lifts inside. Now, why do I care about his height? I don't. I get a kick out of how defensive Pete Buttigieg is about his height, that he's wearing special shoes to appear taller than he really is. But just to review the claim, did Pete Buttigieg claim that he'd be willing to send U.S. troops to Mexico to fight the cartels? He absolutely did. Also, Pete Buttigieg is 5'6". Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Peace.
Bye.